Welcome back to video number 3 in our Working with Buyers segment. I'm happy that you were able to join us today, and I hope that the information that we've been talking about is helpful to you. So today I want to give you some discussion points for your buyers in terms of what their expectations ought to be. First of all, please make sure your buyers understand that sellers are not obligated to respond to every offer. In other words, many buyers become frustrated and they will change agents just because they didn't receive a formal counteroffer from a seller, or because they didn't get a formal rejection of their offer from the seller. And rather than look to the seller's rights and look to the listing agent's business practices, they look to their own agent and say, why couldn't you deliver a counteroffer to me? How do I know that the offer was ever presented? I want some proof. I want to see that the seller rejected my offer. I want to see that the seller actually saw my offer. And we become very defensive because now we're in the crosshairs and we're trying to make excuses about why this didn't happen. Look, our job is to prepare the buyer in advance. So when we have that discussion with the buyer during the consultative interview, we explain to the buyer that sellers are not obligated to counter every offer. They are not obligated to give written verification that they've received or rejected any particular offer. And if a buyer understands that going in, there is a far less likelihood that they're going to point to you and say, why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you deliver to me what I expected from you? So again, I fall back on that age-old issue of managing expectations regardless of who you represent. The other thing that buyers need to have a very clear understanding of is the different types of property that are on the market today. In my view, we can divide it into 3 sections. We have the REO, the real estate owned inventory. Those are properties that have already been foreclosed upon by the lender or asset management company acting on behalf of the lender or a servicer. Now they've been foreclosed upon. They are on the market as an REO. Buyers ought to understand what that means to them. They ought to understand the complexity of the sometimes 1 to 10 to 17 page addenda or counteroffer that these REO sellers issue to buyers, which in many cases can actually strip away some of the buyer's rights under the purchase agreement, and buyers have to understand that. Then you have a horse of a completely different color in the short sale transaction. Buyers have to realize that if they have an immediate need to move, a short sale probably isn't the right type of property for them to be looking at. And also, if a buyer really expects to get significant help with closing costs or credits for repairs, the likelihood of a short sale meeting those expectations is very low. While it can happen, the chances of it are very low. So make sure the buyer understands. And then of course we have the standard, what I'm now calling an actual equity sale, the standard sale, where the seller actually has equity and it may be a simple and fast-moving transaction. Regardless of the type of property that you're going to be showing the buyer, it's our responsibility as the real estate professional to make sure they understand the nuances of those types of property and what it will mean to them in terms of timing, in terms of cost, and in terms of overall stress and aggravation. So it's important that we have that counseling session. Honestly, I cannot put enough emphasis on how important it is to actually counsel buyers on the process. I don't mean to be repetitive, but there's nothing that's more valuable to building your relationship with your buyer than having that one-on-one discussion and really letting them know what to expect in the process. And so in the next video, we're going to talk about a few other things that you can do to really build on the relationship with the buyer, avoid problems, and increase your success. Thank you for joining us.